Okay, all right, so these are our drawing tools. This is the only place that we'll find this in the software. I do want to go through each of these tools so that you'll know how to use them. So right here we've got our defaults. This is the Select Objects tool. And so basically if you click on something and you want to neutralize your page, this is the tool that you would choose right here, Select Objects. Okay, moving down to the Text tool. So if I click on this, it depresses in the toolbar, but you can see we have Arial chosen as the font. You can change the defaults. Typically when we design our forms, we like the Arial family. So any Arial, Arial Narrow, any of those fonts are just fine. And it defaults to a size 10.
Okay.
Okay. And then from here, if I have it depressed and I hover over the page, it has a little plus sign plus that text tool icon, little a. So if I click, what it does is it defaults to a 1 inch by 0.25 in height. And it's got the 8 handles that surround it so that I know it's selected. With those 8 handles, I can just type and it removes the label, but as you can see, there's a little bit of a wraparound in the text. So I would click off in the white margin, click back to see those 8 handles, and then I can manipulate the size of this by grabbing any one of those handles to either extend it out or hover around until I see those double arrows, and then I can hold my mouse down and move it that way. Now, a quick tip on how to move objects very quickly is just click and hold your mouse down. I'm not releasing my mouse, and that way I can grab it very easily and quickly.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say we want to duplicate this text box. We can do so very easily by either what you're familiar with, Control-C, Control-V, copy, paste. What that does is it staggers it like so. You can also go to the Edit, copy, paste right here, this drop down. But if you want to place it in a particular spot, what I would do is I would hold my mouse down, and then I would hold the Control key down so that there's a little plus sign. That means I'm going to drag my mouse to wherever the location I want to copy this and release my mouse. I'm still holding that Control key, but it makes a copy of that element. Again, I'm holding the Control and the left click of my mouse down to make a copy. Okay, so if I've got like objects, and let's say I want to align them, I made a mistake and I want them really to be left aligned and evenly distributed down the page. I can do so by lassoing all 3 of them. All I have to do is touch them. I don't have to encompass everything. I just have to touch. And once I have them grabbed, and I'm just holding my mouse down to drag across everything to grab them, I'm going to use my alignment tools right here. So I can left align, and I can spread them down the page vertically by using this last tool right here. Again, the height of these have to be the same in order for this to work properly. So just keep that in mind when using these alignment tools. Okay, any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay, pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. You probably worked with other software that works similarly. All right, so that is the text tool. Now you can put borders around this text tool by clicking on this and going to Object Appearance. Here you can add a border by unchecking Clear, and so now we've got a border around this. Here are your text alignment options right here. These are your element alignment options. So if I wanted to align the text within this text box, I could center text here and like so. And so now it is centered within that text box. Okay. If I wanted to add a gray border, now and also our software works in shades of gray here. So if I wanted to add a gray background, I certainly could. Okay, the color popped up on another screen, so my apologies. But you have various shades of gray that you can choose from. Don't choose any of the color. I cannot get to it.
Okay.
There we go. And then you just want to make sure that you uncheck Clear. And so now you can have a gray background. Okay. And typically I like to use the lightest shade of gray possible for whatever reason that prints nicer than the other darker shades.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So that is the text tool. Now there are occasions that you will see text and it's in red. So if I go to the format to font, and again, it's going to probably pop up on a different screen, but I'm going to choose red. So on occasion, you'll see this. If you see red, typically the visible is set to never print. So it might have your initials on here or something else, but just know if you see red, it's not going to print, probably because we set a template to do it that way. All right, so just know that that's a possibility as well. Also, let's say we want just a top border. We want a border around here. We certainly could do that by going to the border tabs. Right here on the right side, we can remove the sides, and I'm just clicking on here and uncheck clear so we can see that top border. And so now we have a text box with a line on top of it. So that might be good for signature lines like that.
Okay.
Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're designing as well. If I say we have an e-sig form that needs to be done, then this is probably the signature line that I'm hoping for. The style for our product will work. Okay, but I'll go into more details on that. If I say e-sig forms, then we'll talk more about that in person then.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so that's the text tool in a nutshell. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay, all right, I'm going to clear my page. Control A is your select all, and then delete or backspace will delete everything that you've selected. And we're going to talk about the line tool. So if I click again, it's just going to default to a 1-inch line. If I want to lengthen this, I'm going to hold my shift key and drag out the handles. If I accidentally draw a crooked line, you always want to hold that shift key because most likely you want a straight line. So if I accidentally draw a crooked line, I'm going to hold my shift key and click on that handle, and it will pop it to the closest 45-degree angle.
Okay.
So that is nice. Now let's say we want all the lines to be the same. Let me draw a couple lines that are different sizes. Okay, and let's say we want all the lines to be this length. We have a stamper tool right up here. So we can use the object stamp tool and click on these, and it will create lines that are the same. Okay. Again, if I align them to the left and spread vertically down the page, they align properly based on where the top and the bottom lines are. Okay, and then again, I can grab this group if I need multiple lines, hold that control key, and I can make copies. Okay, I can zoom in and out holding that control key with my middle scroll of my mouse so that I can easily see my page and use those alignment tools, and that group is done. Now, if we've got something that we think we might use on a regular basis, we've got what's called the designer toolkit right here. So there's a wrench and hammer right here midway on that top row. And when you first open yours up, it probably will look like this, but this middle tab at the bottom is your designer toolkits. It comes defaulted with a few designer toolkits as is, but you can add new ones. And so what I would suggest as we start new projects, you click on this green book and hit new designer toolkit, and then name it whatever it needs to be. So I'll just put SAM training. Okay, so now I have a toolkit right here, but you would just go ahead and name, like the first hospital I'll send you is probably Providence. So you'll enter a Providence toolkit. Okay, all right, so I'm going to select all these, hover around until I see those double arrows, and then I can just drag and drop those lines over. If I delete them on a page and double click, it populates in the same spot every single time. So when working with templates, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but when working with templates, this is what we want to do. Just double click so that it goes in the same spot every time. Okay. Okay, so that's lines in a nutshell. Let's talk about the oval tool. I don't want to spend a lot of time because you're not going to use this very frequently. But when drawing a circle, as you're drawing it on the page, you want to make sure that you hold that shift key down so that it stays round. Okay, and you can just kind of use your mouse and move it around and create a circle based on the size that you want. But let's say you made a mistake. Again, the stamper tool would work if I wanted all my circles to be this size. Choose that stamper tool and then click on this. It'll change it to this size. But let's say I like the height of this, but I don't like the width. I'm going to select this and go to the tool called Size and Position. Okay, so from here, like I said, I like the height of this, so I might copy this, and then I can paste it into the width and size and position. And so now I've got a perfectly round circle that way as well.
Okay.
Once it's on the page, you cannot resize it. You're just guessing. So just keep that in mind. As you're drawing, if you want to circle, hold that shift key.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so the rectangle tool, let's talk about that because you will be using it. There are times that you have a rectangle and maybe you have a text on top of it. So that's okay. The end user is not going to know that there's multiple elements. Don't worry about putting a border on a text box. This is fine. Sometimes you have multiple rectangles that are kind of together like so. And it appears that there's like a thicker line. I don't know if you can see that in between the first and second rectangle. To do away with those thicker lines, click on one of them, either the top one or the bottom, and then I'm going to go to size and position and just remove that top border and see how it just makes it look so nice. So keep that in mind that sometimes driver settings might make the lines appear a little bit thicker than others, and so turning off that top line will make it look right.
Okay.
Okay, and if you've got multiple rectangles, you want to make sure that they're all the same width if they're across the page, because it doesn't look professional if like we're just guessing and it's like this. So go ahead and choose the one that you want, size and position, and you've got that width right here. So I'm going to copy that, Control C is your copy, and then you can paste the width in this way.
Okay.
Okay, so that is the rectangle tool. Again, it works the same way. You hover around, kind of staying away from those handles until you see those double arrows, and then you can move things around. Okay. And one other feature, I don't know how much you're going to use this. You see it on occasion, I'll just mention it. So if you go to Object Appearance, you can round the corners out, and you can choose how rounded you want them.
Okay.
And have a rounded box. Okay, so that is the rectangle tool. And I want to talk about graphics. So you cannot copy and paste graphics into our software. You must use this graphic tool. So there's a couple different methods. First of all, I'm going to stress this. Use scale proportionally. This is the only option that will not distort an image when you import it in. So I'm going to choose that right off the bat, and then I'm just going to browse for a graphic right here. So I've got Atchison Hospital right here. I can go ahead and pull that in.
Okay.
Click OK. And so now I can resize this, and as you can see, it does not distort the image.
Okay.
Okay. And that's any graphic. So I do want to pull up another form, though, just so you can see another option of pulling a graphic in using the tool. So this is an old copy of a form that it's seen better days, right? So the OCR, optical character recognition that we use for our software, it didn't read it properly, but there are redeeming qualities to this form. So if we go to the View dropdown to Form Image, this is that original scanned form in. So I can delete all of this right here on the form, and I've got the image down below. If I use my graphic tool right here, I can click on this, and it populates it up on the top. So it's a usable graphic. So keep that in mind that as you see graphics on the form, go ahead and pull it in that way.
Okay.
Okay, if it's something you want to use again in the future, on future forms, immediately right-click, go to Object Definition, and change it to Scale Proportionally so that you can resize it in the future and pull it to your toolkit.
Okay.
Okay, so now I can go ahead and double-click and resize this, and it will go ahead and make it any size I choose for future forms. So that's kind of a nice feature. Okay, and so with graphics, just a note, make sure that it's 300 DPI. We want grayscale images. Our software does not work in color for all the forms that I'm going to have you do.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I do want to mention this. As you import a form, you saw that flow sheet had a bunch of yellow in it. If we see this yellow, we want to use this tool called the Line Convert tool. So you would just simply click on this, and it creates a line in its place. Okay? That is the line convert tool. And make sure you deselect it, and I can't stress this enough, your form may crash on you and there's no history to the save. So you actually lose your form. So save early, save often. So make sure you turn this tool off after you're done with it. I learned that the hard way. I don't want you to. Okay. So, and also as you import forms, you may find this, and this is called a comb, and we don't use this in our software either. So you're going to want to either right-click, convert, or go to the edit drop-down and convert it to a line. Okay, that's a comb. All right. All right, so check boxes. We set the default to half-point line weight. Now, on occasion, I turn the lock tool on so I can make multiple checkboxes. You can do this with any one of these elements, this lock tool right here. So if I choose to use, say, the text tool, I can go ahead and flip it to text. When I'm finished, remember the select objects tool. This is kind of the neutralizer, so I'll go ahead and select that, and then I have nothing selected on the page, and I can continue on with my form. But with the checkboxes, if I send you instructions and they want quarter line weight with a 1-point offset, then this is probably what they're going to want to do. So you would want to go ahead and select the checkboxes. And then on the border tab, we want to make it quarter line weight. And then for the location, maybe the lower right as 1 point. And what that does is it creates a shadow. I don't know if you can see the difference between the two. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about offset, or if there's no offset, then it's just probably going to look just like that. We try to encourage hospitals to do it just like this because it's a little cleaner and easier to manipulate. Okay? Just so you know. All right, I'm going to clean my page here. Actually, before I do that, I want to show you a couple tips. I'm going to remove this, though. All right, so when working with checkboxes and text boxes, there's an easy way. I'm going to zoom out real quick. There's an easy way to line this up fast. So you can either grab the text here, align it to the left. I'm going to use my arrow keys and kind of nudge it over. I use the handles as a guide next to my checkboxes, and then might use the spread vertically page to make sure it's evenly distributed. Now you can do one of two things. You can either right align it and then eyeball the top and eyeball the bottom, and then grab them both and align them down the page. That's probably the fastest way, but or easiest way until you get used to it. There's another method, and as you get used to doing this, just let me know. But I think eyeballing it and then using the alignment tools is just fine for now. Okay. Let's see. Moving on. Let's talk about circle text. Again, as you import forms, you may find circle text right here. It's part of what we call the prep steps, and we'll go over those prep steps in a few minutes. We do that with every single form. So if we see this, we actually either want to delete this and put a new text box in its place, or we can convert it. So you can right-click, convert to text. After you do that, you have to select it again and then take that border off because we don't want the text to have that border. So on the border tab, choose clear. And so now we have a regular text box. Okay, tables. Let's talk about tables. So tables come in layers. There's 3 layers. You have the outside border, and let me go ahead and just change that line weight so you can see what that border is. So then we have the outside border. We have the fill text, that yellow stuff in the table. That is layer number 2. And if you delete that, underneath it is the table cell. Okay, so when we work with tables in FastPrint, we actually want to remove the yellow because that's for a little bit of a different software that, and I may have you work on some of those, but not for now. So we'll just go ahead and remove that yellow, the fill text. Okay, so now I'm down to 2 layers. Immediately, we can change the outside border by going to Object Appearance and changing it to half point. But that's just the border, so we have to manually go in and change the line weight of the cells themselves. To do that, click on the table once, hover over the top or to the side depending on the number of rows versus columns, and then just click holding that Shift key. You want to select every single cell in that table. Then you go up to Object Appearance and change the line weight to half point. And this is a manual process that you're going to have to do for all tables. unfortunately.
Okay.
So you have to go through and select all those cells like this, holding that shift key so you select multiple columns or rows. Okay, let's say we want, I don't know, every other we want to be 1 point for whatever reason. We could certainly do that. I'm holding the shift key and just selecting those rows, and then you can change your line weight. Oops. Oofed. Okay, if I zoom in, and you can see the difference. I should have chosen to. Okay, so that's that. Now, if you wanted to merge your cells, you certainly could. And I'm just going to click on a few. I'm holding that shift key down and go to Object Appearance. There's a couple different ways. You could check Clear on the Border tab, and that will clear all the borders in that area. And so from here, you could insert a text box like this. Okay, you could also do it a different way. So think of the neighboring borders that you have on these cells as well. So if I click on this cell and I click on the right side to be released, okay, it didn't do anything because its neighboring cell has a left border. So if I click on this, I will have a merged cell.
Okay.
So keep that in mind when doing that. Okay, I'm going to clear my page and let's start over because I do want to talk a little bit about tables again. So again, I'm going to remove this. Okay, and so I'm down to these layers. I would go ahead and change the line weight. I'm holding that shift key, clicking, Object Appearance, and then half point. Okay, so there's a couple different ways, but we're going to say that the table came in, it didn't have text in it, and we need to add text. A couple different ways we could do it. We could use the lock tool and choose the text tool and just click in the cells of the text that we the cells that we need text in. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and then I'm going to release. Now, I didn't do a very good job centering this within the table. Not a big deal. I can just grab this. I'm just lassoing outside the table and grabbing them, and then going to size and position, and then snap objects to the table cell. So that just snaps it to fit. And from here, you can go ahead and do the center alignment that you need. Okay. So as I go ahead and manipulate this table, as you can see, it stays locked in. The other option, if you have multiple columns, instead of clicking, and you want to copy and paste, you can choose to have one text box that's kind of in the whole table here. And this is good for forms that you've got multiples of, and so you can format it and then pull it to your toolkit and reuse it. So for this purpose, let's just see how many columns we've got, how many rows. So I've got 15 rows. Let's just make it 10. Okay, so I'm going to click on here. I'm going to go 1 through 9.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not doing a very good job with my with the formatting here, but we can easily fix it by clicking on that text box, going to Format, going to Text, and under Spacing, you can choose exactly, and then guess. You have to guess first what the spacing should be. And let's just try 15. Let's try 18. Okay, 19 was too much, so 18.5 would probably be where we need to be. Nope. Okay, well, you get the idea, so. But you can choose the spacing. Okay, we're going to go 18. You should have just typed 18 to begin with. All right, so I've got that setting right. Now I can control, I have the control key, and I hit that little plus sign again, holding my mouse down. I can paste so that this is formatted for future columns, like so. Okay. So now I can lasso starting outside the table, align to the top, moving my arrow keys, kind of put it where it needs to go. And if I want to center them, align them across the page, I could choose this spread horizontally. I don't know if you saw that, but it just kind of aligned across the page then. Okay. So now this table is ready to go for future columns. Okay, so that is an option for sure when building tables. Okay, This bottom graphic tool right here, we don't use this. It's for another bit of our software, so don't worry so much about that.
Okay.
And let's talk about inserting a symbol, because you will see you need check marks and different things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put a text box on the page here, and I'm just going to put a 1 in here. My cursor is blinking in here. I want to make sure my cursor's in that text box. Go to the edit drop down, insert symbol, and then you can use Arial, symbols, or Wingding fonts. I'm just going to go straight to Wingdings. I'm just going to type W to get to Wingdings. And right here in the bottom is our check mark. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So there's our check mark symbol that we use sometimes. You can find bullets in the Arial and different fonts as well, but Arial, symbols, and Wingdings, that's kind of where we like to live in. I'll put a check box there and a check mark, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. So sometimes you can't see objects, and it's because it's hidden underneath. So you can bring it to the front. I'm just using my arrow keys and just kind of nudging it around. Feel free to use your arrow keys to be more precise in your placement. Okay, so if it's something you want to use on a regular basis, maybe you pull it to your toolkit.
Okay,
that's inserting a symbol. Okay, we work with one-page OFMs. I do want to point that out. So if I send you a 5-page document, think of it in terms of surfaces. So page 1 would be one OFM, and OFM is the design file that we work with. And we'll send you those file naming conventions that we want as well. But just think one page at a time.
Okay.
All right, so I showed you the view form image. After you scan and import a form in, you have that view form image, which is helpful when you're designing forms and proofing them so you can see what the original looks like. Okay, if you want the rulers, this is how you would set this up in the view dropdown. And if for whatever reason you lose toolbars, this is how you get them back, right here. Okay, the format dropdown is just another way to access these tools right here. And I do want to circle back around and talk about object definition, but we did talk about object appearance and size and position. So let's talk a little bit about that object definition. I kind of breezed through the tables. So if I click on this and let's say I go to object definition. So from here, we can choose the number of rows and the number of columns. So maybe I made a mistake and I need 10 rows. I can choose 10 rows, and maybe the height of these rows need to be 0.25 in height. So now I've got a table that has 10 rows. But let's click on this table again, and go to object definition, and let's say I need 5 columns, okay? But I actually like the width of this table, so I would make the columns equal width right here by checking that, and it doesn't change the size of the table, it just adds the columns or rows. Okay, so keep that in mind with object definition. And of course, I would follow through with those steps of removing the fill, changing the line weight to half point, like so. And that's if you have to build a table from scratch, of course. Okay, all right. We were in format, so that's object definition, size, and position. We talked a little bit about font, and we talked a little bit about text. I'm sure that's pretty self-explanatory. But merging text, let's talk about that. So I'm going to put a couple text boxes on the page. Okay. You want to make sure that your text is kind of staggered. If you align these to the top, it's going to make a liar of me probably, but select what you want to merge and go to Format, Merge Text. And it does merge it together, but sometimes it doesn't merge it in order, so just be aware of that. Okay. You want to stagger it. So if you made it into like little stepping stones or whatever, it'll merge together properly. Okay. 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 Under the tools down, let's talk about options here. So I may send you a Spanish form on occasion. If I do, then before you import it in, what I want you to do is I want you to click on New Forms and choose Spanish Modern Sort. What that will do is it'll bring in all the special characters and everything, and it'll do a good job with just reading all those characters before you start designing it. So just keep that in mind, and also be aware that you need to go back after you're finished with that Spanish form and change it back to English.
Okay.
Okay, and that's about it for the tools. That covers
Where
everything.
was the option?
That's under Tools,
Okay.
Tools, Options, and then International.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the design tools, the drawing tools there, and all of these tools in a nutshell. I do want to cover creating a form from not from scratch, but importing one in and showing you the form fast prep steps. That is in the manual. I think it's page 3 or page 4 in the manual, called the form fast prep steps. We follow this with every single form. So let's go through together, and I'm just going to click on just a generic form that we typically do in trainings. So File, Scan Form. But if you remember when we were setting up your software, we chose to open up the original format, and then we chose Print to Form Designer. That's what I would like you to do in the future. So Scan Form, I'm going to select the files here. And again, this is just a sample. Okay? All right, so when going through the Form Fast Prep steps, you want to open up that original document. You want to print to Form Designer one page at a time, and then you want to save it. That's part of step 1. I'm going to save as sample form to my desktop. Oops. Okay, and then the next step would be cleaning the edges. So I do want to show you that flow sheet again, because this is a really clean form. There's not much of cleaning up around the edges. So let me show you what I mean. So any old template information, anything that has the form name, this used to be where the hole punches go, this is where the patient demographics go, all of that would go away in the cleanup. Okay, if I hit Control A, you can see there's all kinds of little, I don't know, bits in the margin here. So you'd want to remove those because it would cause corruption if we left them. Again, down here, this is just gibberish that we would want to remove. And also, something I neglected to tell you earlier, if you hold your Shift key, you can select and deselect objects. So if I needed to keep something, I'm just going to hold my Shift key to select or deselect.
Okay.
Okay, so that's cleaning up the edges right there. Let's go back to that form. So if I hit Control A, it's pretty clear because it was a clean form to begin with. So we're going to move on to step 3, which is changing circle text to text. And we have 2 circle text right here. You can do 2 things. You can either delete them and put new text boxes in their place, but you can go to the Edit dropdown to select by type and choose circle text. So you can choose any of this. So if you wanted to collect all of the check boxes, you could do this select by type in the Edit dropdown. Click OK, and then you can go to Edit, Convert. You can also right-click and convert it to text. Select those again and remove the border by clicking Clear. Okay, so now we're going to move on to flowing text across a line. This is super important when working with our forms. So I'm going to leave this one as is so you can see what I mean. So Edit, select by type, choose text. I'm going to deselect this one just to show you. And then we want to make sure it's set to whatever font is supposed to be used for the facility. But generally speaking, we like Arial as the font, or Arial Narrow.
Okay.
Go up to Format, to Text, and then the text flow. This is the important tab that I want you to focus on. We want the text to flow across the lines. So go ahead and check this, click OK, and then go ahead and select the size of the font that you want. So I'm going to select 9. Okay, if you don't do this, and let's say I need to put sample form. See what's happening here? And it's because it's not flowing across line. It's just fitting into this text box. So it looks a little distorted. Okay. So if I go to Format, Text, flow it across the lines, you can see that it looks nicer.
Okay.
Okay, so flow text across the lines. All right, so moving on, we would want to talk about the fill text. Again, we've got that line convert tool right here. I'm going to start in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm just going to zip down to the bottom right, and it's going to take care of all the fill text it can. We have a little bit of yellow that we have to deal with, but we certainly can do that separately. Go ahead and remove this tool, deselect this tool. It's important, otherwise your form may crash. And then we've got this right here. As you recall, we talked about combs and how we don't like them. This is a comb. If you are confused and you don't know what an object is, you can right-click, go to Object Definition, and right here it'll tell you what that object is. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and right-click and convert to a line. And these are combs as well, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete these. You could add the parentheses by extending this out if you wanted to, and then typing like that. And maybe I might copy this and paste it into the fax number. Okay, so now I've got that done. Now I've got fill in my table, so I'm going to start outside the second column here and remove that fill by just starting outside and hanging out in this last cell right here. If I go beyond, I may accidentally select the whole table and delete the table. I know I've got the fill selected because I've got multiple handles here, so instead of just the 8. Okay. So I'm going to select all that fill, hit delete, and it's gone. What we're left with is the yellow and the check boxes, and we like that because that's different from a rectangle. So we're okay with that yellow. Okay. The last thing we would want to do is change that line weight. So Control-A, Object Appearance, and go to that Border tab and choose half point line weight. Okay. That changed all the line weight outside of tables. Now we have to deal with things that are locked in the table. So again, hold that Shift key as you're selecting the columns and change it to half point, and we're good. The last thing we would want to do is to go to View, Form Image, and maybe check our work. As you can see, if I click on this, it shows it in red at the bottom. So you can see and proof your work. You're looking for wraparounds because sometimes that happens. You may miss a colon. If you just extend it out, it'll be there. So don't think that you have to retype it. Maybe extend that text box. Maybe it's too short. Okay. And then you want to make sure that it looks good, that lines are where they need to be. I don't think that these lines, I think they're a little bit too low for the text. So you could do one of two things. You can just lasso across and move the text down like so. You could extend that line out holding that Shift key so it's closer to the text, and just move these down. It's your form, so whatever you think is going to look right, but you get the idea. Okay. All right, so that's that. Again, I'm going to show you how to do this image again just as a refresher. Use that graphic tool. Go ahead and select that graphic on the bottom, and then it pops it up on the top. Okay, so I would say almost in all cases we use what's called a standardized template, and I want to show you how to apply that. And we'll just use the Providence one because that is the project that I'm going to have you start working on. Right here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to remove this. And again, save your work often because you just don't want it to, you don't want to lose your work. If you've got the split screen and you want to go ahead and remove it, you can just drag it to the top or the bottom and you're back to your design file. Okay, so I've done all the hard work. I've gone through all my prep steps, and again, that's on page 4, and we want to do that with every single form. Those prep steps are super important. If I found misspellings and all of that, I want to wait until after I finish those prep steps in order to make any kind of corrections, because you will see some spelling errors or some strange things. Just go ahead and leave it, finish those prep steps, and then go back and proof your work. Okay. And then after you get done designing it and everything looks good, I noticed that this needs to be bolded. After everything looks good, you want to apply the template. The first thing you want to do is apply what's called the red box, okay? This is where the form content lives, just to make sure it's fitting in the template properly. And as you can see, I'm kind of hanging at the bottom here. So to fix that, Control-A will select everything. If I hold my Shift key and click on that red box, it will deselect the red box. I don't want that to move. And then I'm just going to use my arrow keys and nudge it up the page. Okay, so I'm where I need to be in this red box right here. This looks good. So I can either delete it if I accidentally moved it or I don't feel comfortable. You could apply a new one just to be safe. But if you feel like you did what you needed to do, go ahead and double click on the template, and then you would just apply that information. So right here at the top, that is the form name. You will see on the template how they want it formatted. So if it's upper lowercase, so if it says capital F and form and then capital N and name or something like that, you want to be careful in how this is formatted. For this one, they want it all in caps. So I'm just going to, in all caps, sample form. And then pass that along to my son too, because he doesn't pay attention. And then we'll give you information as to what to put in this template. This is a pretty involved template. It's not typical. So they actually have a file location that I'll pass along to you as well. If I don't, just leave it blank. With the development date, it's going to be on that original as well. If you don't see it, just delete this part, okay? And then bring the line up. So the revision date, I will tell you if it's going to be an original date or if it's going to be a current date. If it's a current date, then we just want to put today's month. If they're asking for an original date, then you put whatever's on the form. Okay? The barcode value, I will give you that information. If not, then I'll either tell you to strip the value out, which I mean just delete this but leave the field. Or if I tell you what that value is, always add an asterisk to the front end and tail end, and always use capitals when creating a barcode. So let's say for this sample example, we're going to use sample all in caps, and it's got an asterisk at the front end and the tail end. Okay, a lot of times you're going to see pound signs. This is the form number we're looking for. Again, I will give you that information. So if it's not there, don't worry so much about it. I'll give you all the information you need, and if you have questions, you certainly just let me know. Okay? Form type, again, this is not normal, but with this particular hospital, they have a form type as well. So it could be, we'll just call it nursing. Okay, and of course, page X of X, this is a one-pager, so it's page 1 of 1. Okay, and so now our form is done. We would save it, and then you would just go ahead and email that to me or put on the SharePoint, whatever we decide we're going to move forward with our process. And that's how to build a form with a template. I do want to show you how to pull a template into a toolkit. So because you're going to have to do this with every hospital we work with. Let me go ahead and pull up their template first, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so this is their standardized template. Okay, and I'm going to do where's that toolkit that I made for you? SAM training. Okay, so you would go ahead and name a Providence toolkit. First thing you want to do is drag and drop that red box without moving it. You can right click and rename the design element red box. Then you would want to do a Control-A that selects everything on your page. Hover around until you see the double arrows and then drag and drop again. Right click, rename the design element. Don't rename the toolkit. Rename the design element portrait template or something like that. Whatever your naming is, that's fine. And then that way you can do what we just illustrated with the double clicking of the red box, the double clicking of the template. Okay. And so you will have
like that whole toolbox, whatever the hospital name is, right?
Correct. Yes, correct. And so every hospital will have its own toolkit.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Not at the moment. I'm sure I will.
Okay. So what I want to do is I just want to show you kind of how this will work out. So I'm going to send you, this is an example for Providence here, probably PDF or Word documents like this, okay? If you see stuff like this, this is not needed at the top, as well as this logo. Go ahead and take this stuff off. Even this form name, we're going to add that to the template. So anything template related, we're going to remove that because we've got a new template to put on. Okay, down here, that would go away. This would go away.
Okay.
Okay. So first thing when working with those prep steps, just again to remind you, I'm going to choose print. Pull this window over here. Print to Form Designer. Where is it? There it is. Page 1 or current page, and then click Print.
So if there's more than one page, just you do them individually, right?
Do them individually. Yes.
Okay.
And so this is kind of what spits out, and then we would go through our steps together. So you would want to save it and then clean up the edges. And like I said, this is part of cleaning up the edges right here. We want to remove this and anything at the bottom so that we just have the form content ready to work with. Okay. Sometimes it just doesn't come in that great, and so you're going to have to retype some of what the original was. So if we go down to View Form Image, yeah, this just didn't come in at all. So it's a little bit of work. Don't be afraid to use that merge text. So it's one text box.
Okay.
And then with forms like this, I would recommend before you start to clean them up and design them, if they're content rich, put that red box on first. And see if you can get it to fit. Because sometimes it takes a little doing to get these to fit in there. See, this is still not fitting correctly. So what I would recommend doing is going to the Edit, Shrink Page to Fit, and let's say the bottom we want is 0.15. And what that does is it'll shrink it just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to put a red box on here, and so we're closer to manipulating this. This is good. We can go ahead and move things around to get this to fit, but that's a good size right there. And then you would go through your prep steps. But make sure that if you're going to use Shrink Page to Fit, that you do that before you follow your prep steps.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I know I threw a lot at you. So what I'd like to do is I want to give you a form to work on just as a sample and see how things go, see if you have any questions. As you work on it, Taylor's probably available. Feel free to text me as well.
Okay.
But I want you to work on those prep steps and getting it done. If you feel comfortable with this. If you would like another work session, we certainly could. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, so what I'll do is I'll send you an easier form to work on, and I'll send you the template, and then go ahead and get going on that, and then, let me know if you got problems, but I will try to get this recording on YouTube. I don't know how to do that, but I will try. And that way you've got something that you can